Before we sip today's tea, let me ask you something uncomfortable. What if the most famous atomic spies in American history weren't masterminds? What if one of them wasn't a spy at all? And what if the stories you heard in the courtroom wasn't about justice, only fear? Welcome back, my beautiful, curious, slightly unhinged truth seekers and lovers of the uncomfortable real. You've tuned into Whistle Brew, powered by secrets. It should say caffeinated by secrets. The only place where we don't just sip the tea. We squeeze every last drop of truth out, strain it for facts, double-check the proof, and serve it piping hot. Today's brew is bitter and explosive. Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. Beliefs, family, spying, and a government that chose fear over fairness. Julius Rosenberg was born in 1918 on New York City's Lower East Side, a neighborhood full of immigrant struggles, political talk, and hard survival. His father, Harry Rosenberg, worked long, brutal hours in clothing factories. His mother, Sarah, ran a home filled with talk about work, unfair treatment, and power. And crowded tenement apartments, beliefs weren't just ideas. They were how people survived. Life in New York during the Great Depression was loud, packed, and harsh. Radios buzzed with news about strikes, bread lines, and war overseas. Elevators broke often. Heat went out in the winter, neighbors borrowed sugar, shared papers, and argued about politics and stairways. Privacy was rare. Community was necessary. For Jewish immigrant families on the Lower East Side and in Brooklyn, moving up in life depended on school, discipline, and knowing how the world worked. Anti-Semitism was real. It shaped jobs, housing, and schools. Top colleges quietly limited Jewish students. Good careers were blocked before applications were even read. This world didn't turn people into radicals overnight. It made disagreements feel normal. When capitalism clearly failed many people, other systems felt practical, not extreme. Communist meetings didn't feel secret. They felt like explanations. They gave words to the unfairness people already lived with every day. For Julius and Ethel, this world trained them to be careful. You listened closely, you chose words carefully, you learned which opinions were safe at work and which were only safe at home. That habit, showing one's face in public and another in private, later looked like spy behavior, even if it wasn't the original goal. Political pamphlets were passed hand to hand. Socialist newspapers stacked up on kitchen tables. Union talk floated through hallways. Julius took all of it in early. Power, unfairness, and systems weren't abstract ideas. They were daily life. At City College in New York, Julius was smart, relentless, and very political. City College in 1930 wasn't just a school. It was a hotbed for political debates. People jokingly called it the Harvard of the working class. It educated bright kids from immigrant families who were shut out of elite colleges, but hungry to prove themselves. Tuition was free, debates never stopped, politicalness was everywhere. Julius Rosenberg did well in this world. He studied electronical engineering, a subject that mixed theory with real-world uses. This mattered. Julius wasn't drawn to abstract ideas. He liked systems, machines, and how things connected and broke. Engineering showed him how things worked. Politics showed him who controlled them. He joined the Young Communist League while at City College. Meetings weren't dark or secret. They were social, smart, community-focused. Students argued about fascism, workers' rights, and the coming war in Europe. For Julius, communism wasn't spying. It was what he believed was morally right. He thought capitalism caused inequality and war. The Soviet Union, even with flaws, seemed like a balance to that. By the early 1930s, people had quietly noticed his beliefs. Friend groups were forming. Friendships that later became recruitment paths. 3 years earlier, in 1915, Ethel Greengrass was born in Brooklyn. Her childhood was less openly political, but very aware of the world. Education mattered, responsibility mattered. The bigger world beyond Brooklyn mattered. Ethel was smart, organized, and observant. Someone used to handling systems quietly and completely. Ethel went to Seward Park High School, where she stood out for her intelligence, organization, and confidence. She started college but left early, partly because of the money problems and partly because she was expected to help support her family. She worked as a secretary and a clerk, learning accuracy, discretion, and office order. These might sound like simple skills until you realize how important they are in homes filled with political stress and secrecy. Ethel read constantly newspapers, political essays, union material. Her political learning didn't come from classrooms, but from work life, labor disputes, and real conversations, where Julius's debates, big ideas, Ethel absorbed real-world results. The difference mattered later. Julius spoke ideology easily. Ethel lived it quietly. They met in 1936 at a Communist Party social event. It seemed small, ordinary, and hugely important. Julius was charming, persuasive, and passionate about politicals. Ethel was intelligent, loyal, politically aligned, and emotionally steady. They connected immediately. Within 3 years, they were married. Children came soon after. Letters between them showed a marriage built on love, secrecy, shared beliefs, and fear. Their marriage wasn't glamorous. It was practical, warm, and deeply tied to their beliefs. They lived modestly, raising children in small apartments, budgeting tightly, and hosting friends who shared similar views. Their home wasn't a spy base. It was a social hub. Friends came for meals, music, conversations, and debates. The Rosenbergs believed politics belonged in daily life, not hidden away. Their openness later made the FBI suspicious, but at the time it felt normal in left-wing circles. Ethel was emotionally centered. Letters showed her managing money, raising children, and supporting Julius when he doubted himself. She worried about being watched and worried about arrests. She worried about what loyalty might cost their family, and she accepted the risk anyway. Julius, in contrast, kept things separate in his mind. He didn't tell Ethel details about what he was doing. He didn't think of his actions as dangerous. To him, recruiting and organizing were political acts, not crimes. That difference, that moral belief versus legal danger, would later become deadly. By the early 1940s, Julius left college and began work connected to the government in electronics. His career is often misunderstood. He wasn't a scientist building bombs. He was an engineer working on communication devices, radar parts, and industrial electronics. His job put him near military technology, not inside nuclear physics lab. This closeness still mattered. Cold War spying wasn't just about bomb formulas. It also involved manufacturing material and how systems ran. Julius' value came from knowing who worked where and what information moved through spaces. He worked with Army researchers and Signal Corps projects, gaining access to military and industrial technology, not bomb designs, not infrastructure. He was capable. He was trusted until he wasn't. When he was fired in 1945 because of communist ties, he didn't instantly become more radical. He became more untrusting of the United States government. Being fired reinforced his beliefs that loyalty to his ideology mattered more than loyalty to institutions that rejected him. Ethel, meanwhile, worked off and on while raising their children. Her work was domestic, unpaid, and invisible, which later let prosecutors suggest she was involved in spying without needing to prove technical skills. At the same time, the Manhattan Project was underway, a huge secret project spread across Los Alamos, Oak Ridge, and Hanford. Billions of dollars, thousands of scientists, very little screening of political beliefs. Information was divided into tight sections with many gasps. Across the ocean, Soviet intelligence watched closely. They didn't recruit loudly. They recruited through shared beliefs quietly and carefully. Klaus Fuchs, I'm butchering his name, passed high-level atomic science to Moscow. Theodore Hall, a young genius, gave major insights. George Kowal secretly worked inside Oak Ridge. Julius Rosenberg didn't design bombs. He recruited people. His role in spying was about people and connections. He looked for individuals who shared similar beliefs and had access to sensitive but limited information. He introduced them to handlers and couriers. He helped build trust. He didn't steal papers himself. He didn't photograph plans. He didn't send equations. Instead, he acted like a connection point. In spy terms, Julius was useful because he made information move smoothly. He built networks where details could pass without central oversight. This made him valuable, but not essential. That difference mattered greatly. In Soviet reports, Julius was never seen as a top atomic source. He was useful, symbolic, and replaceable. Washington, however, needed a mastermind, so they turned him into one. David Greengrass, Ethel's brother, worked as a mechanic at Los Alamos. He gave sketches, not full formulas. Harry Gold worked as a courier. Alexander Velesquilas calmly handled the network from a distance. Rosenbergs weren't key linchpins. They were convenient. For Julius, spying didn't look like trench coats and secret drops. It looked like conversations, introductions, building trust slowly. He asked simple-sounding questions. Who do you work with? What level of clearance do you have? What frustrates you about your job? He listened for shared beliefs, resentment, and curiosity. He didn't pressure people. He suggested. He framed corporations as helping a cause, not betraying a country. And when someone agreed, Julius didn't take documents himself. He connected them to couriers like Harry Gold or handlers like Alexander. His role ended once the technical transfers began. This separation protected him in practice but hurt him in court. Prosecutors couldn't show physical proof, so they argued that intent itself was guilt. Ethel's involvement was personal, not operational. She knew Julius believed strongly in communism. She knew he met people often. She understood politics could be risky, but she had no technical knowledge, clearance, or control. Her role was emotional and domestic. She hosted gatherings without asking questions. She kept home life normal under stress. She absorbed worry so Julius could stay calm outside. She avoided asking questions that could get them in trouble, instinctively protecting both of them. Later, prosecutors called this compliancy. In reality, it was survival behavior from a woman balancing belief, marriage, and motherhood during a time of fear. Life didn't feel dramatic while spying was happening. Kids cried, dishes piled up, rent was due, neighbors knocked at bad times. Every small problem raised the risk level. Julius constantly worried about being watched, but not about arrest. He believed his beliefs protected him. Ethel constantly feared arrest, but believed loyalty required silence. Neither thought execution was even possible. That's key. They didn't realize the rules had changed. Spy laws existed before, but Cold War enforcement used them in harsher ways. They were living by Depression-era assumptions in a new age of fear-driven politicalness. June 15th, 1950, Julius Rosenberg was arrested. His arrest came after months of FBI watching, triggered by Klaus' confession. Agents traced calls, meetings, and contracts, building a web of connections rather than direct proof. When arrested, they expected him to cooperate. He didn't. That refusal made the case escalate. On August 11th, 1950, Ethel was arrested next, but not for proof, but as pressure. Her arrest was strategic. Justice Department notes show it clearly. Arrest a wife, threaten the family, break the husband. It was psychological pressure disguised as law enforcement. Agents knew they lacked solid evidence against Ethel. It didn't matter. Her value was leverage, not proof. David Greengrass cooperated quickly. The deal was simple. Help us or lose everything. His story grew more dramatic each time. Under FBI pressure, he claimed Ethel typed atomic notes, something he later admitted wasn't true. The public story hardened fast. The Rosenbergs were charged under the Espionage Act. The charge was conspiracy to commit espionage, not successfully giving away atomic secrets. That mattered because prosecutors didn't have proof they passed bomb designs. Only that they intended to help a foreign power. Intent replaced hard evidence. Ethel's case depended almost entirely on her brother's testimony. Not documents, not physical proof, no confirmation. legally weak, politically powerful. Atomic betrayal, treason, global disaster. Meanwhile, real atomic spies like Fuchs, I pronounced his name wrong, oh well, Hall and Cavall were mostly ignored. The 1951 trial wasn't pure justice. It was theater act. Judge Irving Kaufman described the Rosenbergs as responsible for mass death, even trying them to the Korean War casualties without real evidence. Prosecutor Roy Cohn, ambitious and media smart, pushed headlines that screamed guilty. Cohen later admitted privately that Ethel's arrest was leverage. Publicly, he played the role of executioner. The jury saw drama, the public saw a story. The law bent. Lies became foundations. Ethel typing secrets, completely false. Julius, an atomic mastermind, exaggerated. Execution was necessary. More political than legal. The Internal Justice Department memos confirmed it. The execution was meant as a warning. Death sentence for spying was rare, even in wartime. Similar cases usually ended in prison, not execution. The Rosenbergs were executed because they became symbols. Prosecutors argued their actions helped the Soviet bomb and therefore caused Korean War deaths. A claim not supported by evidence but powerful in rhetoric. Fear filled the gaps that law could not. March 29th, 1953, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were executed. Their sons, Michael and Robert, were very young, orphaned, not by spying, but by politics. They grew up under stigma and whispers. Over time, they uncovered the truth. Their father was a recruiter, not a bomb scientist. Their mother was executed for loyalty to her husband, not proven action. Fuchs served 14 years and returned to science. Hall lived quietly, and was never charged. Cavall disappeared completely. Gold faded from memory. Washington praised itself. Moscow quietly laughed. The Cold War tightened. McTheism rose. Fear proved effective. Hollywood exaggerated the story. Textbooks simplified villains. Public memory hardened around symbols instead of facts. Meanwhile, real espionage quietly changed the nuclear balance. Fear, not justice, had won. And there it is, truthful seekers. The Rosenbergs' case didn't end in 1953. It spread and influenced later thinking. It became a model, not legally, but psychologically. The government learned something powerful. Fear works when wrapped in moral language. Intent could replace evidence. Belief could stand. Public panic could do what courts were supposed to do. This pattern didn't stay in the Cold War. It reappeared during Centerpol, the Red Scare, the War on Drugs, and the War on Terror. Times when the state needed a story more than the full truth. The logic stayed the same. If someone believes the wrong thing, they might act wrongly. If they might act wrongly, they are dangerous. If they are dangerous, anything done to them feels justified. Ethel Rosenberg sits in the center of that logic, executed for not proving actions, but for what she symbolized: loyalty, silence, and refusal to break. Modern parallels feel uncomfortable because they are familiar. We still confuse association with guilt. We still punish stories instead of actions. We still reward cooperation more than truth. We still sacrifice individuals to send messages. The Rosenbergs remind us that the most dangerous lie isn't espionage, it's certainty. Certainty that fear equals safety. Certainty that punishment equals justice. Certainty that the official story is the whole story. History, like espionage, lives in the margins. Because history doesn't speak loudly from podiums. It whispers through court records, leaked memos, forgotten letters, and the lives left behind when fear wins the argument. The Rosenbergs aren't just a Cold War story. They're a warning about power, about panic, about what happens when justice is driven by fear instead of truth. So, the next time the government says someone is dangerous beyond mercy, pause. Ask who benefits. Ask what evidence is missing. Ask whose silence is being bought. We don't tell these stories to excuse. We tell them to understand. We tell them to remember that certainty can be the most dangerous weapon of all. This has been Whistlebrew, powered by secrets and caffeine. We don't just sip the tea, we squeeze it. We strain it, we burn our fingers on it. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and for the love of history, keep your whistles ready. Hi, thank you for watching Whistlebrew, caffeinated by secrets, where we don't spill the tea, we pour it, strain it, and look for the truth. If you like my videos, please share, like, subscribe, comment. In the description box is also a link to my merch. Please take a look, and if there's anything you want custom made, leave a comment or email my merch company. They are very dedicated at working hard on making sure you get exactly what you're looking for. I love you guys. Thank you. Stay tuned because there's another video. It's a goodie.